I always say that I never make a plan B. If for any reason my plan A fails, I'll make a new plan A. That's definitely something I live by.
This podcast encourages and empowers you to create your own unique real story, develop your own unique real statement, and discover your own unique real self. The power is yours. Good night, Michael Weinstein. How are you doing on this wonderful, beautiful night?
I am doing well. I'm extremely excited to speak with you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, definitely excited to speak with you as well. But you can't hear it in your voice, and I guess it's the jazz that does that, isn't it?
Yes, that's definitely a part of it.
Well, do tell us, which of your talents would you say is responsible for us connecting at this specific time in history?
I have a lot of interest for sure. Certainly on the professional side, I'm the president of a digital agency owned by Bluewater Media, which is a major marketing and advertising company out of Florida. It's actually one of the fastest growing companies, not only in the state, but in the country. And we shoot TV commercials and run television media, digital media, take people to home shopping, to retail. It's really like a one-stop shop to take products from an idea all the way to the masses. And it's just something I absolutely love doing, not only for the company, but for our clients, and to see that success brought to people all over the world. So that's certainly a exciting thing for me to speak with you about.
Yeah.
And certainly when I'm not in the office or spending time with my family, I've been a professional musician for years. I've had the good fortune of playing piano all over the world. And so that is something very close to my heart and something that I look to do daily for sure.
So if I had to sum that up, I would say the ability to be a great project manager, because there's so many things that's going on at the same time, right? Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, it's definitely, and it's a nice, I guess, blending of creativity and execution, whether it's music and writing songs and then actually performing them, or the same thing with a company, having a vision and then being able to actually execute that as well.
So who in your circle or family had that type of built where they're doing both things at the same time?
It's interesting. It's the combination of my parents that's actually made that, work, where my father was an electrical engineer, a businessman, and, chief engineer at a multi-billion-dollar company. My mother was an executive at a nursing home, and she's worked in the Alzheimer's field for years, but she's also a musician. So I think I was really fortunate to see those sort of skills from each parent, as well as, most importantly, see the discipline that they both have. That's just something that I've, kept in my personal life that I find extremely important.
Was it something you rebelled from at first and then eventually caught on, or was it something that you always walked in?
Yeah, maybe that's going to happen at some point still in my life, but so far, no rebellion. That which they tried to impart on me actually took pretty early on, luckily. And, again, I always thought that to be successful, you need to have vision and passion and all that, and obviously that's true. But to really see that come to fruition, you need the discipline. And like I said, I was fortunate to see that trait in both of my parents, and something I do daily.
That's wonderful. So where's the best place for someone that's listening to connect with you?
I have a website that has all of my links and contact info at michaelweinstein.me. .me, that would be. So michaelweinstein.me.
Why would you continue to be this guy that continues along this path?
I've always been all about doing whatever makes me happy, and wanting to see something that, is rewarding and fulfilling. You spend a lot more of your life, or at least most people do, certainly in their career, than necessarily, in their homes. And if you're not happy doing what you're doing most of the time, it's generally a recipe for disaster. So for me, like I said, you want to love what you do and do what you love, as you've heard before, and I'm a big believer in that.
Tell us about one other thing that you've done consistently over the last 3 years, please.
I definitely meditate. That's been a really consistent thing for me. I always find time for meditation.
How does it make you feel?
I'd say everything from focused and extremely positive to also relaxed. And it gives me sort of that belief that I can manifest anything, that if I actually see it and can relax and let that positivity come through, that I can actually help it become a reality.
Now you've been creating things, making things come into reality. I saw there's like some popular things that you brought to market, didn't you, Michael?
Yeah, it's funny. Some years ago, not long ago, a few years ago, actually, I heard on the a radio show, inventors were talking about ideas that they had and some things that they wanted to take to market. And someone mentioned this idea, you've heard of like wet wipes for babies. And he felt that they weren't large enough for extreme situations, I'll call it. So he invented a wet wipe in the shape of a mitten, like a giant wearable mitten that was a wet wipe, and he called them Shittens. And I was driving in my car. I thought that was the greatest thing I ever heard. I thought it was really funny, and I was able through going online and networking to actually connect with him, meet with him 24 hours later, put together a deal, partner with him, and literally a month later we had taken it to market. And Shittens has since gone unbelievably viral. Still is. It's on Amazon. It's one of those amazing things where we've actually, unlike by day where I help people put advertising dollars in order to grow their businesses, this one on its own has just continued to go viral, and we've been fortunate enough not to actually have to do much to help that along.
Yeah, I think one of the things that needs to be communicated as well is how you do things and you keep under budget where the advertising ads go. Like I read an article where you spent like what, $100 in advertising. I think it was, what was it? What was that product?
That was actually that one, the Shittens.
All
Yeah,
right.
we boosted a little bit of a post just to kind of test the waters for about $100, and the next thing you know, it was received over 200 million views, and it went viral, and it was on TV shows, and like I said, somehow years later, it's still going. So yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes you find something that's not only funny, but it actually solves a problem, and then there's magic to that.
Suggest to someone that's listening, that person out there who may not have the confidence to decide to manifest the thing that they desire, why they should do what you've done by taking action.
Yeah, so certainly, I mean, it's obvious that not everything you necessarily want to happen is going to work out the way you at least intended to. So that's where it goes back to kind of the discipline. You still need to really think through what it is that you want to do, and then make sure it's realistic and achievable, and then reach out to those that have skills in those areas. A lot of the inventors and the companies that I've worked with over the years have actually come to us because they've gone through that process of trying to do it themselves. And there's nothing wrong with, again, reaching out to others that have experience in the field to work alongside of you and help take that. So manifesting doesn't necessarily mean you're doing it yourself. It just means you're finding a way to get to your goals.
Amazing audience. Again, you're getting it live from Michael Weinstein. You can connect with him at michaelweinstein.me. Michael, let's switch gears for a moment. Let me invite you into my time machine that is surrounded with beautiful, warm, blue Caribbean water. Michael, what's your earliest childhood memory?
When my brother, who's 4 years younger than I am, was born, I do remember my dad had come home from the hospital after my mom just gave birth. My dad was holding like a duffel bag, which I believe were like my mom's clothes from the day before while she was still at the hospital. And my first question to my dad was, "Is my brother in that bag?" And he said, "No, this is mom's clothes. Your brother is still in the hospital." I remember not believing him and forcing him to open up and show me that duffel bag that my new brother was not in there. And for some reason, that stuck with me, even though I was 4 years old.
Wow. It's intriguing. I mean, how do you see that memory connecting to who you are today when you look at the determination of the young 4-year-old?
It's funny. I'm not sure the exact connection. I just know it's probably the first real life-changing experience I have. And yeah, sometimes you just have to kind of hold on to those things that are not just something in your everyday life, but those big, big moments that change it. So I guess that kind of stuck with me since.
Love it. All right. If we fast forward to when you were 12 years old, what was your favorite song?
Oh, that one I know all day long. Journey, Don't Stop Believin' came out just around that time when I was 12. And as a piano player and taking lessons at that time, it was all about classical music for me and learning sort of the technique involved. And that got me into learning, wait a minute, I can also play rock music, and I can start looking at some other things. And that was not only my first kind of favorite song at that time, but it was the first one that I learned on the piano just by listening to the radio and not actually reading the music. So that was kind of game changing for me musically.
It's an interesting name of the song as well. Don't Stop Believing, the ability to manifest, like even with your father, you didn't stop believing that that your brother was in the duffel bag, right? Pretty cool. All right, well, we've arrived at our destination. But before we get off of this time machine, there's a small declaration form. So it's yes or no. We're going to move pretty quickly here.
Sure.
Are you ready?
I am ready.
Michael, have you chosen someone to pass on your skills to?
Yes.
Are you married?
Yes.
Do you have children?
I do.
Do you believe in God?
I do. I'm definitely more spiritual than religious, I would say, but yes.
Do you have an inner circle of friends?
Yes.
Do you watch TV for more than 3 hours a day?
No.
How about 3 hours a week?
Yes.
What about screen time, the phone and or the computer? Is it more than 8 or less than 8 hours a day?
Definitely more.
And reading, how often do you read?
Not as much as I should. I will admittedly say I'm one for the audio book before reading. That's something I plan to change.
All right. Many Gracie Jiu-Jitsu people I know tend to listen on audio for some reason or the other. I'm not sure. I need to draw the line on that statistic and see if it's accurate. All right.
That's funny. Yeah, I was always a learner through auditory and not through visual.
If you had to share with us your own unique real statement, a statement that represents who you are, what would you say that is, Michael?
I think this goes back to the manifesting discussion we were having. I always say that I never make a plan B. If for any reason my plan A fails, I'll make a new plan A. That's definitely something I live by.
Love that. Never heard that before. Michael, this has been such a great pleasure. Before you leave, is there anything else you'd like to share with our amazing audience?
No, just thank you to you. Again, you're doing a wonderful thing. I love listening to all your shows and all your podcasts, and I learn so much every time. So thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure I treasure. Michael Weinstein, thank you for being on What Is Inspired by 12-Minute Convos with Angel Jones. This podcast is produced by Pod Edits. Visit podedits.com for professional podcast publishing.